All right. So it's the first time I'm going to include the chat in the discussion, but let me just give you guys the situation first. So this is a post on Reddit, and I saw it, and I made sure to screenshot it because I definitely want to talk about this. This is something that I've, felt needed addressing, and I think it's a perfect time to do it as well. So this user on Reddit said, I don't seem to enjoy AoE2 like before. That was the headline. And he said, this is subjective, I know. My complaint is that everyone now seems to be doing the U-pudding thing or one-trick ponying everything. U-pudding being like an all-in rush. They do Portuguese organ guns. If your civilization doesn't have redemption, you can't defend. Sicilian rush, Saracen rush, Mongol rush. Whenever I see those, I'm 99% sure I'm seeing an all-in thing that I don't know how to defend. Not everyone is an expert at build orders or wants to practice all day to be able to compete. It used to be more about strategy and adaptation. Now everyone memorizes a build order, and unfortunately, the game seems to favor those people. I see other people talking about this too, and the usual response I see is, then you don't deserve to be at that elo. Why does it have to be so competitive and soulless? Again, this is subjective and my opinion. The game or the community does not make me happy, but I have to say it feels less fun. It does not have to make me happy, but I do have to say it feels less fun. Okay. Now, this is a very important thing. Number one, I'll leave it on screen a few more minutes so you guys can read it. Number one, what I want to address here is a few points that needs to be talked about. Number one, this is a very serious thing because if your average player that used to enjoy this, that uses the subreddit, and he even has this Frank's logo near him, this is an invested player, right? This is not just a casual that played the game once, okay? This is an invested player. If our invested player base has this kind of feeling, it is definitely pretty bad, okay? Or at least it needs addressing. We should at least talk about it. I think that's what I want to achieve from this video, from this conversation today. So that's going to be the situation. I want you guys to give your thoughts about it in the chat. I'll start with my thoughts, and of course this will go to YouTube so people can read out all kinds of comments and whatnot, and then I'll read some of them out myself. But what I want to say firstly is, okay, number one, it's a big issue, and number two, he seems to be having a problem with a couple things. Number one, the civ picking and the all-in rushing, and number two, with people just memorizing build orders and not being able to stop their memorized strategy. And it has nothing to do with him adapting and like playing strategic or thinking. It's more to do with just his opponent steamrolling him. Now, from my perspective, I think it's very clear that all-in strategies are a little bit too strong right now. Now, we've seen U-pudding become very popular for doing all-in, siege workshop rushes. Then we see Red Phosphor doing the unique unit rushes. We've seen Huang for a long time doing the siege bushes. And all of these strategies have one thing in common. They are much easier to execute than they are to defend. And this is something that definitely needs addressing, because a guy like that, first of all, a guy like me, right? Pro player, I won't be dying to these rushes as often. It could happen, but I won't be dying as often because I can defend using the highest caliber of the game possible, me and other pro players alike. But the average Joe, right? Like the 1100, the 1500, even your committed player, even the committed player base, they will have a lot more of a harder time to defend a rush than their opponents will have of executing it. So if you take two 1500s, one that practices the game, how to play properly, scouts, archers, maybe just adapting, adding in some economy. And if you take that guy, put him up against a 1500 that does nothing but practice these all-in rushes, the 1500 who practices the rushes will win pretty much 9 times out of 10. And it's come to the point where I feel like it is definitely a really big problem. Now, I think we can just jump the gun and call for some nerfs. But then the question is, what do you nerf? Now, if we will, which I'm not, again, I don't have any horses in this race. I'm just kind of a bystander and I care about the community, right? So that's my perspective. If you are to nerf this, I'm not saying we should, but the way to do it, you got two options. Number one, you nerf what gets them to Castle Age, which is by far the market. The second thing you can nerf is the deer and the rhinos in Arabia. You can only make it spawn boars and not rhinos. Rhinos have extra food, making it easier to get to Castle Age. Or you can nerf the market, making it harder for them to get to Castle Age by using the market and selling, stone or gold and just getting up to the Castle Age. Reason why market works is because gathering gold early on is much faster than gathering food. So you gather gold, 20 on gold, buy it up with the market, it's much quicker. And even though it's less efficient, it gets you to Castle Age as fast as possible to make the rush deadly. So if you did want to go to the nerf route, you got, two options. The first one is nerf how they get there. So either deer, rhinos, and market. And the second way is you can actually nerf every single unique unit and do a complete rework of the balance of the game. This is a more complicated way, but this is something that I prefer. As much as the market is annoying and is definitely a problem, I think the biggest problem with the market is the fact that it gets you access to units that are way too strong. And I think recently, over the past 2-3 years, we have a lot of units that have just become way too powerful. Organ guns, they don't need any upgrades, they're way too powerful. The Hussite wagons, way too powerful, don't need any upgrades. The Rathas have incredible stats and are come out the gate really strong. These units, the Sicilian, the sergeants, they come out of, instantly in Castle Age and they're really strong. So those are the two options if you want to nerf these strategies. Again, I'm not calling for nerfs. This is just kind of how I feel like, what would address the all-ins. The second thing I want to talk about, though, is nerfs aside. I think that with RTS, it's kind of inevitable that as the game develops longer and longer, things will get perfected. Players will get better. And so over time, it's very possible that if you don't play consistently, you just feel like you're falling behind. And so what I want to say here is that just make sure if you're a player, if you're not enjoying one aspect of it, like, ranked because you're getting all in, I would say try to find another way to enjoy the game if you care about Age of Empires. Obviously, you don't have to play. You can go elsewhere and do whatever. Everyone's free for that. But there are other ways to enjoy Age of Empires that are completely away from the 1v1 meta, like team games with friends. You can play, campaigns. You can even play some custom scenarios. You have communities for that as well. So I will say that even if you don't like the meta right now in 1v1s, you can easily enjoy the game with other ways. In other ways. Okay, now one last thing I want to talk about before I read out some comments, and I like that we have the chat there so people can read the different takes. Again, I saw people agreeing and disagreeing. That's good. That's welcomed. That's welcomed. Last thing I want to say about this topic. I think due to guys like me, guys like T90, guys like Viper, making videos about these rushes, it is basically like it's undeniable that they will become popular. Like, because we're making these videos, people will want to try it out. And it's not like the problem is one or two guys all inning. It's the fact that a bunch of people, like thousands of people, see these strategies online and think, oh, I'm going to go ahead and try this out. I'm going to go ahead and, attempt to win with the strategy and just practice it a couple times. So you end up getting a bunch of different people trying it out at different times. And I think that is kind of what creates the situation we have now, where players just feel like there's no chance for them to even compete. So that's kind of where I am. That's kind of where I am with regards to these all-in rushes. Now, as far as what I would like to see personally, I would like to see the issue addressed at least in some way. I don't know how you do it. I don't know if you nerf market, if you nerf something else, or if you make it so you can't like pick civs on ranked ladder or something like that, or like you just change the way things go. But I would like for this to be addressed. And the reason being, we are now starting to see all-in rushes very prominent even at higher elo. And when something works at higher elo, it works twice as good at lower elos. So I think at this point, because of how popular they are and how powerful they are, I think something does need to change. And like I said, I go with lowering the general power of civilizations and preventing early castle units from being so strong. Someone in the chat saying, I never faced it once in 200 games. I mean, that's good. That means you're lucking out. But I do know it's a really big problem because I've seen tons of people asking me about this and post about it. Not just this Reddit guy. So it's probably 50-50 as to if you face it or not. But definitely does feel like you're going to run into it more often than not. I just realized I should do this with camera as well. Let me see if I can get a camera on screen here real quick. Oh, and that's very nice. First time doing this, but I definitely like this concept. So Leary in the chat said, whole game balance needs a rework. Everything is broken nowadays. So Leary is also agreeing that things just need to be nerfed across the board. There is this idea, by the way. There is this idea where you can say, if everything is broken, then everything is balanced. Okay?
Agree that we're in agreement about being agreeable.
There you go. So that concept works to some extent. If everything is broken, then everything is balanced. But the reason why I don't like it for a game like Age of Empires 2 is because then it becomes very matchup dependent. If you get a certain situation that favors your civ, you will just dominate with the thing that's broken for you, and your opponent can't react or can't stop it because you just happen to have favorable situations. So I think everything is broken, so everything is balanced is probably not a good setup or a good approach for AoE2 balance. Another thing that's interesting to talk about is that AoE2 has been around for 25 years, and I don't think it's ever had this problem as much as today of how strong all-in rushes are. And this is why I like to think about like more the modern, like think of it why it happened. And if you think about like the all-in civs that work well, like Saracens, they got buffed multiple times for their market. Romans, they got an insane economy and cheap scorpions. This is why they're being played. Bengali, Portuguese, the unique units are all all new. They're all new and really strong. You're not going to see Franks doing an all-in rush like that and it being broken. Being a noob, I play League usually, and if everything is broken, not everything is balanced. Everything is just as imbalanced as the rest of things. It may become frustrating. I actually agree with that. Yeah, definitely. And I think, I mean, one last thing worth mentioning, actually, it just came to me, is that there is a certain group of people that say, that if you don't have these rushes in the game, it's always going to be Archer Scout, and it's always going to be like the same thing. And I think that's a very good, that's a very good opinion. Like we don't want the game to be like unique units are not viable, you know, it's just Archer Scout. So what I would say is to make every party happy, I think you need to nerf what's too strong, which is the all-in rushes, buff infantry to break the Archer Scout setup, because right now it's like only Archer Scout works. Infantry is terrible right now, so you buff infantry to spice things up for the archer, for the meta gameplay, and you nerf the unique units or like the all-in rushes, maybe the market, who knows, to make things more balanced so that every single option is viable. If you lower the power level a little bit more, it will slow down the game. And right now, it feels like the game is a little bit too fast-paced. It's a strategy game. Why get rid of strategies that are better than yours? Why not nerf Archer Micro? I don't have time to practice. Well, what people are complaining, right? And this is what sparked the discussion. People are complaining that people, or like the, you know, players, just go for all-in strategies that are memorized builders, and they can't stop it, even though they know it's coming. And I think that's even worse than anything like Archer Micro. This is not a game of strategy anymore. It's a game of like preparation, and you can't like adapt or stop it. I think that's a really bad problem to have for a strategy game. Last thing I'll read here, I feel like Devotion made this worse too. In my opinion, it should only apply to stable units or at least not apply to unique units. Monk defense at least should be an option versus these pushes. I agree with that as well. I think the addition of Devotion was there to balance monks, and to some extent it does help, but it does make these all-in rushes a lot harder to deal with. Thing is though, I will say on that note, I think Devotion makes unique unit play viable in the mid game. So for me, and last thing I'll end on this, I love unique unit play because I think like unique units being viable spices things up, you know, spices things up a lot. But I would love for unique units to be viable in the mid and late game. And I would not like for unique units to be viable as part of an all-in, at least not as much as we're seeing right now. So real question is, will any of this be done? I don't know. Will any of this be done? I don't know. I made this video as a discussion, and I want to hear a lot of different opinions. I think we got quite a few from the chat. Obviously, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, let me know what you guys think as well. Let me know if you like this format for future discussions. I personally really like opening a discussion, getting the different opinions in, because for change to come, we have to first identify the problem, or at least come to a consensus. And then we can say, hey, devs, you know, please help. But if we can't even agree on what the problem is or what should be fixed, the devs themselves probably can't identify it either, because they have way less information as to what the player base actually wants than, you know, than maybe a streamer or maybe the player base itself. So that's going to be it for me for this video. Let me know if you guys like this kind of format. I'll do it more often if you guys do enjoy it. And let me know in the YouTube comments what you guys think about this discussion and what you guys think about the topic at hand. To the guy on Reddit, poor guy on Reddit, I feel your pain, brother. I wish that you can enjoy AoE 2 in some other way and stick around the community, and hopefully things get better for him. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.